So in this video I'm going to show how to actually set up the DBAAS configuration. Before I kind of go on to that, I want to kind of show a few prerequisite things that you may need to do, but what I'm going to do is just point you to where the documentation is at so you can kind of review that. So if you go to the oracle.com webpage and you click on Downloads, Enterprise Manager, then you can click on the documentation tab. Once you click on that documentation tab, click on the first link, which will link you over to where the 12104 documentation is. The one you want to look at is Private Cloud Setup and Administration. Click the HTML, and you want to look at, maybe read over the overview and also setting up the cloud management infrastructure. That's going to take you to a lot of the prerequisite things that need to be done, which you can kind of see that in my other videos that I've put together already. But we'll go ahead and move on. So what you're going to want to do here is click on Setup, go down to Cloud, and then Database. This is going to take you into the Database Cloud self-service portal, which the first thing you want to do is set up the database pool. So click Create for databases. This is going to take you into the Create New Pool. Go ahead and give it whatever name you want to give it. You can put a description, then set up all your credentials. For the host, you'll need root, as well as you need grid infrastructure if you're using grid infrastructure. Then select your PAS infrastructure zone. Select the platform. In my case, it's Linux. The database configuration will be a database instance and then the version of that database. Then click the Add button. Then you're going to see basically the host that's been set up in that zone, and it's going to automatically pick the 11G home that's available to that zone. Next thing here, there's a few things on this screen, but in this case we're not going to use it. Standby pools, placement constraints. In this case, I am going to switch the placement constraint. I'm going to drop it down to 5. This will just allow how many database instances per this host can be created through the self-service portal. So then click Submit, and that will then create the database pool. As you can see now, we have a green check mark, and we can also see the pool. If you click Request Settings, this is already pretty much done. Basically out the box, it's just no restrictions. So you can put restrictions as needed. In my case, I'm not going to put any restrictions at this time. So we'll move over to quotas. So click Create to create a quota, and here you can drop it down, select the role name, and then set any quotas that you want to set for memory, storage. This will basically is what is going to be allowed when the users start going into that self-service portal. Basically, once they get to these quotas, then no more databases will be able to get created until those quotas are increased, or until they remove a database and go below those quotas. So once you click OK, you'll see that the quota now has a green check, and the database role is now below the role name, and the quota has been set up. So now go ahead and we're going to click on Profiles and Service Templates. First thing we need to set up profiles. Click Create. We're going to give it a reference target. In this case, it can be any target, even target not in the PAS infrastructure. Okay, so I'm going to select just one of my databases, and this is going to be the reference target. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to set it up to be data content, and I'm going to use RMM backup. because I want to get the structure and the data. As you can see, there's other things you can pick here. In my case, I'm going to do an RMAN backup to take an RMAN backup of this source target. There's other things you can do here. You can use an existing RMAN, you can do exports, you can do a structure only and basically set up like a database template, kind of like when we use DBCA. There's also snap clone features that can be used here. In my case, I don't have that, so I'll just move on. We got to set some credentials, so I'll use name credentials and set the credential names that I have. Once we have that, we can click next. Next thing is going to be how the RMAN backup will run. So I'm going to do an online backup. You can choose channels, however many channels your host can handle. You can do compress, non-compress, you can use file encryption, and you can choose your fast recovery area. And then you can keep local backups, so you can set a local backup. And then set the until time for how long you want to keep that. In my case here, I'm choosing the location of where I want this backup to be placed. So I'm not going to use a fast recovery area because my fast recovery area doesn't have enough storage, so I'm switching to directory and picking the directory. And then you can click next. There's some file formats there at the bottom that you could do, but you can leave them default. So here's just some more information, giving it a name, maybe a temp directory. You can set to be scheduled, click next, and then you can click submit. And basically what this is going to go out is start running an RMAN backup of that source system. And it will create a provisioning procedure activity. And you can monitor it like any other procedure activity that is in OEM. So in this case, this will take about 15 minutes, so we're going to let it run. I'll let the screen refresh a couple times here so you guys can see what the screen is going to be showing. You can see here that the initial profile creation, that has a green status because that part is done. This little arrow is basically skipped steps because those steps don't need to run for this particular procedure activity. So if we go further down, we'll see steps that are pending. You can keep expanding those, and then if you check the step that's actually running on the right hand side of the screen, you will see the details of that step that's actually running, and you can find out what that step is actually doing, maybe some elapsed time, and see which steps have actually succeeded and maybe which one is still running. If we jump over to the server and we basically grep on, do a ps-ef and grep on RMAN, we'll actually see that there's an RMAN process running. If we cd over to the backup directory where we said we would place where we wanted the RMAN backups to go, you can actually see that a directory has been created, and that's where this procedure is actually creating the backup. If we come back now, we can see that there's certain procedures that are actually green. So we'll kind of jump to the future. We can now see that all my steps are green. We're done. The elapsed time was about 11 minutes. This database is fairly small, and all these procedure steps are complete. So if we click back on Setup, go to Cloud, Databases, when we come back into here, we're going to see that under Profile and Service Template, we now have a profile that has been created. It has the information that we saw. It's an RMAN backup, the description that we had there, and the name that was default given to that profile. So now we're going to do Service Template, click Create for Database. We give it a name. That name can be actually long, 1 to 256 characters. That's a really long name. Don't make it too long and just make it outrageous. That's crazy. Okay. For the source identification, you're going to click Profile, and as you guessed it, we're going to select the profile that was just created. In the database definition here, you can set if you're going to do single instance, you're going to do rack, how many nodes you want to select. In my case, I'm going to do single instance, and yes, this new part that's in R4 allows the user to specify the name of the database at request time, so you can select that. Now click the add button at pools and zones, select the zone, now you're gonna okay, my fault here, one step that was missed. So once you select that the pools and zones, you need to actually select the pool and then click the zone and then select pool, and then we're going to select the pool that we need to select. So now you can see that you have the name and the resource pool. Then in that pool it's setting the reference host. So now click next. Okay, this message, what it's saying is that on the target system these backup files don't exist, okay, which makes sense because the source system where we created the backup is on a different server, okay, kind of like you're on production or you're on a QA and you want to refresh or create a database in a dev environment. So basically what you need to do, unless you have a shared folder, what you'll need to do is copy the backup directory to the same path on the source server, which is what I'm doing here on the screen. I'm basically just using SCP, that directory name, to the target system. Oops. Okay, let's try that again. Yeah, if I could spell right, then I would have gotten it right the first time. Okay, there we go. Blah blah, give the password, not a regular file. Whoops, forgot the -r. Okay, now we'll try this again. Put in the password, and there we go. So we'll let this run, and we'll pause here for a minute. Okay, now we're back. I kind of fast forward to the future, and the files have been copied. So now we'll go back to our screen where we were at. Well, let me go over to the target system just so you can see that the directory's there, and it's there. Okay, so now we come back to Enterprise Manager. Now we can click Next, and we got the message again. Okay. Okay, let's check this again. I see the problem. Okay, yeah, I just had the directories wrong. Okay. So now we get a good successful next screen because we had the path wrong, so sorry about that. Paths have been fixed. So in my case, I'm using ASM. I'm going to pick my disk group. Obviously you can pick whatever disk group you want. I'm picking DG Mirror just because that's the name of my disk group. Fast recovery area, I'm going to also use ASM. I'm going to click Fray Mirror. Again, you can pick whatever you want. You can enable archive log. In this case, I'm not going to enable archive log. I'm going to pick my listener port. Now, obviously you can pick whichever listener you want to use that's already configured on your target system. Here you need to put an administrator password. This password would be the password for syssystem and DBAAS and MP. You could have different password for all those. You can have the same. I'm going to choose a non-administrator credential. So I picked my name here, and that's going to be the SSA user for doing different SSA tasks. So click Next. Yep. And one thing missed is I didn't put in the size of the recovery desk. So fast recovery size needs an actual size. So put that in there. Click Next. In this screen here, you're able to change whatever settings you need to change that are available to be set. I'm going to switch this to none. Click OK. I put in the wrong spelling, well, not the wrong spelling, but the wrong case, just so you could see. It'll let you know, hey, that's wrong. So I put in the right one. Click OK, and that now gets set. So in this screen, there's different init parameters that you can change. You will see the editable column will tell you which ones can be changed and which ones can't. So this is another good thing, kind of like if you're going to production to maybe create a non-prod that you want to have lower memory. So as with this version of OEM Release 4, we will now be able to use the cloud database as a service to do clones. So this will be a good thing. So on this screen here, you can do custom scripts that can be run post and pre. So you can do more custom things to your database. A lot of these third-party apps, when you do a refresh, they have these post scripts. So click Next, and here you're going to add the role. And this, just so you say, you might have seen I selected this role in another screen. This is the role that we created in another step. So click Next. And basically here is a review of everything you've selected and set. So you have some time here that you can review, and if you need to make any changes, then you can click the back button. So just click Create now, and the template process will start. And we now got a green check mark for profiles and services, and you can see our template is there. I'm not going to talk about chargeback in this video, so that's pretty much it. I'll come back with another one later.